Alright, so what is up guys, this is Coach Aleman, and this online video series will help you prepare for the 11th grade US History STAR test by going over US history through the lens of Mexican Americans. These videos will cover US history from the perspective of Mexican Americans and focus on their stories, their achievements, challenges, and struggles. Remember, if you need more time to complete your assignment, you can always pause the video and you can always replay the video if you feel like you missed or misunderstood something. In the previous video, we learned about a man named Juan Seguin. We discovered that Seguin, along with many other Tejanos, fought alongside legends of the Texas Revolution like Sam Houston, William Travis, Davy Crockett, and Jim Bowie. And we asked ourselves why some of these people become legends, yet others like Seguin and the other Tejanos seem to have just been forgotten. In this video, we will learn about what happened after the Texas Revolution, as well as analyze the causes of the Mexican-American War. So when I was a little boy, my parents would send me to spend my summers in Mexico with my grandparents who lived in Nuevo Laredo. Coincidentally, Nuevo Laredo is the place Juan Seguin lived in after he was forced out of Texas. Wow, I guess it didn't matter that he considered himself a Tejano because he ended up a Mexicano after all. Well, anyways, one thing I never understood is why my grandparents would call the Rio Grande El Rio Bravo. They never called it Rio Grande or Rio Grande, and I always found it odd because in school I learned that it was called the Rio Grande. It wasn't until later that I realized why there was a name discrepancy. You see, after Mexican dictator Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna surrendered at the Battle of San Jacinto, and in case you forgot, that's the battle that ended the Texas Revolution and allowed Texas to gain its independence. Well, after Santa Anna surrendered, he signed the Treaty of Velasco, which stated that the border between Mexico and the new Texas Republic would be the Rio Grande. The treaty also acknowledged Texas independence, and in exchange for signing it, Santa Anna was promised safe passage and transport back to Mexico. Surprisingly, however, Santa Anna was taken straight to Washington, D.C., and there he met with American politicians, including United States President Andrew Jackson. After spending some time in the United States Capitol, Santa Anna was transported back to Mexico, where upon his arrival, a new Mexican government declared that Santa Anna was no longer president. Additionally, the new Mexican government declared that the treaty Santa Anna had made with Texas was null and void, basically saying that the agreement Santa Anna made with Texas, the Treaty of Velasco, was invalid and that Mexico still owned Texas. It's important to note that even though Mexico claimed Texas, Mexico never fully got around to reconquer the territory because it was too busy fighting France. You see, in 1838, France sent forces that landed in Veracruz in what is known today as the Guerra de los Pasteles. Santa Anna saw this conflict as a chance to redeem himself. He offered his services as a military general to the new Mexican government, and feeling completely desperate, the new Mexican government gave Santa Anna control of the army and ordered him to defend the nation by any means necessary. Santa Anna engaged the French at Veracruz, and during the battle, he was hit in the leg with a cannonball. It shattered his foot and his ankle, and it required amputation of much of his leg, which he ordered buried with full military honors. Yeah, that's the kind of crazy, strange guy that he was. Despite Mexico giving in to French demands, Santa Anna used his war service and loss of his leg as a way to show the Mexican people he was willing to sacrifice himself for Mexico. And soon thereafter, Santa Anna regained control of Mexico and used the control he had of the Mexican army to rule in a more dictatorial way than he ever did during his first administration. With resentment growing over his dictatorial ways, Santa Anna was finally forced to step down from power and fled in December of 1844. The buried leg he left behind in the capital was dug up by an angry mob and dragged through the streets. Fearing for his life, he tried to elude capture but was eventually apprehended and imprisoned. His life was spared, but he was exiled to Cuba and told to never return again. Now, if you're in my US history class, you will recall that we learned about American westward expansion, and we also learned the term manifest destiny, which is the idea that God wanted the United States to expand across the North American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. One of the main believers of manifest destiny was an American politician named James K. Polk, and in 1845, Polk became president of the United States. When Polk came to power, the United States had just annexed Texas, which had gained its independence from Mexico just a decade earlier, and Polk made it his goal to acquire California. He attempted to purchase California from Mexico, but Mexico responded that California was not for sale. So how do you acquire something that is not for sale? Well, you can wait until it's for sale, or you can take it by force. So what did Polk do? Well, he sent government agents to Cuba. But why Cuba? We will get back to that question in a little bit, but first it's important to understand that the border of Texas as an independent nation was never really defined, and Mexico rejected the idea that it was independent at all, and this became a major issue when Texas was annexed by the United States. You see, the Republic of Texas claimed land up to the Rio Grande based on the Treaty of Velasco. Mexico refused to accept the treaty as valid, claiming that the treaty was invalid, and even if it was valid, the Rio Grande in the treaty is what we know as the Nueces River today. What Americans call the Rio Grande is actually the Rio Bravo, and this is why my grandparents always called it the Rio Bravo. That's actually its real name. So now back to the question, why did Polk send government agents to Cuba? The answer is Polk sent agents to secretly meet with the exiled Santa Anna. They brokered a deal that would help him regain power in Mexico, and in exchange, Santa Anna would sell California and other northern Mexican territories to the United States. Before Santa Anna even made it to Mexico, Polk had already sent troops to the disputed area between the river Mexico had always called the Rio Grande and the river the United States now called the Rio Grande, which had always been known as the Rio Bravo before. Polk intended to provoke the outbreak of war without attacking first. His plan actually worked. 11 to 14 US soldiers lost their lives. The actual number is disputed, but most importantly, President Polk now had a reason to justify war with Mexico. Mexico has passed the boundary of the United States, has invaded our territory, and shed American blood upon American soil, Polk told Congress. Congress declared war on Mexico as a result. In Mexico, the beginning of the war with the United States set the stage for the return of Santa Anna. Although the United States had a complete naval blockade around Mexico, they allowed Santa Anna to return from Cuba. Santa Anna offered his services as a military general to Mexico's president Valentin Gómez Farías. Gómez Farías was so desperate for military help that he allowed Santa Anna to take control of the Mexican army. Unbeknownst to President Gómez Farías, Santa Anna had secretly been dealing with United States representatives not just in Cuba, but also when he was in Washington, D.C. to discuss the sale of California, Texas, and other northern Mexican territories. This is why many people in Mexico today view Santa Anna as a sellout who betrayed the Mexican people. Since Santa Anna spent a lot of time in exile in the United States, many Mexican historians argue that the Texas Revolution and the Mexican War was all planned out to push slavery westward. It's no secret that Santa Anna had been dealing and negotiating with United States representatives to sell large areas of northern Mexico to the United States. Both American and Mexican historians agree those negotiations took place. The disagreements between United States historians and Mexican historians is that Mexican historians contend that Santa Anna fulfilled this promise. They point out how Santa Anna would withdraw his troops from the field of battle just as complete victory was at hand. American historians contend that Santa Anna actually backed out of the agreement and attempted to keep Mexico all for himself. They point out how Santa Anna prolonged the war and denied Polk his assertion to Congress that this would be a short war. So who is right? Well, that's still up for debate. What do you guys think? Did the United States really promote unrest and political turmoil in Mexico to help Santa Anna gain power so he could sell northern areas of Mexico, including California? Did Santa Anna fulfill his promise? Or did Santa Anna use the United States to gain control of Mexico and attempt to keep it all for himself? And that is it for this class, guys. I hope you enjoyed the class. Remember to answer all of your questions in your notes and complete your assignment as you follow along. Again, if you need more time, you can always pause the video or go back and replay the video. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Enjoy your day. Good job.